Now, the people who are supposed to have their finger on the pulse of South Africa before and during elections didn't. They got it wrong. This is what they found. The IRR's final poll released 2 days before the elections forecast just over 50% for the ruling party. It predicted that the ANC would get 50.9%. It forecast 22.7% of votes going to the DA. Its 14.3% prediction for the EFF was way above the 10.8% the party managed. Market data says it's satisfied with its polling figures. The ANC was predicted to get 59% of votes, but it received only 57.51%. The opposition was expected to receive 21% and scored 20.77%. Finally, the EFF was forecast to roll in with 12.1%, but only received the 10.79%. And Ipsos's predictions were based on a 70% voter turnout. Ipsos predicted that the ANC would get 61%, much higher than the 57.5% it got. The DA, 90% lower than the 20.8%, and 11% for the EFF, almost on the mark as the party got 10.8%. So I'm wondering what impact those mainly incorrect predictions had on our vote, and if we should just give up believing in polls. Well, to tell us what worked and what didn't, Ipsos SA Director Marie Harris and political analyst from Wits School of Governance, Ivor Sierkinski. Thank you very much for coming in. What went wrong?
I don't think anything went wrong. Polls are only true for the time when the interviews are done. Our interviews were done from the 22nd of March to the 17th of April, face-to-face in the homes of respondents and in their home languages. A poll should always be evaluated within a margin of error, and all the figures you quoted there from the Ipsos poll was in the margin of error, except the ANC vote, which we did get wrong. We overestimated the ANC vote. But in the...
And why do you think you got that wrong? What
I will tell you now. All the registered voters in April 2019, we had the ANC at 56.92. All the rest we had right, the DA, the EFF, the IFP, the Freedom Front, and all others, the 5.18% that was all the other parties together, all within the margin of error of 2%. So 5 out of 6, not a bad score, I would say. The ANC, we overestimated for a few reasons. This very, very low vote turnout really, I think, hurt the ANC. We saw previously, before the poll, that about 37% of South Africans said there's no political party that they really associate with. In other words, there was huge alienation in the country, very, very difficult election to predict. And then this very low vote turnout of 56%. Our 71% was overestimating because of that very low vote turnout.
Do you think the margin of error is acceptable? And
2%.
Yep.
It's a wonderful escape clause. Whenever you get it wrong, the margin of error. Well, what does a margin of error mean? It's a statistical technique to cover your base when your predictions are slightly out.
We're not looking out for it, are we, as
no,
voters?
I don't agree at all.
Well, I didn't interrupt you, so why do you interrupt me? So it's not good enough to say margin of error. One has to look at what the prediction was, and many pollsters deny that they even make predictions. They talk about snapshots in time, which is actually a meaningless concept. So why do these polls if they're just snapshots in time? What's the purpose of a poll? And the other issue that comes through is if all these polls are scientific or allegedly scientific, they should be pretty close to each other, unless one person claims that we're scientific and everyone else isn't.
Because we saw different numbers as...
Crazy numbers. The divergence was crazy across polls.
So
and that's an indication that...
who you speak to, and I know that there's less enthusiasm to speak to pollsters for this kind of thing. I mean, is that a factor?
But the issue
no,
is...
it's not. When we go into the field, people really want to talk to us. But then we even have to say to people, look, we cannot interview you because the process that we have is stratified random probability sample. We stratify the country by province, within province by the different settlements, then choose the sites at random from where the interviewers work. We list the households on a plot, choose one randomly, and then within a household, we randomly choose somebody to speak to. If that person is not there, we go back 3 times to go and interview that person. The purpose of polls is actually not the horse race, which this question is about, the horse race. The purpose of polls is to get information about how people think and feel. And that is what we do very well. We do polls very well as well, or the horse race question as well. And a lot of times, we do not, although a lot of us are very well academically trained, we do not base our views and opinions on what other people say or what our few friends say when we talk to them. We base our opinions on what people tell us on the ground.
Let me ask you, I mean, could a factor be that there's a slant, there's a bias to the question, possibly, that impacts on those answering at the end of the day?
Of course. There are a whole range of cognitive biases that impact on this. And that's why there are other techniques to analyze election data, psephology, the science of election data, which doesn't include polls. And what you do is you look at trends over time and you do political analysis at the moment in what you think is going to impact on those trends. And I know 4 people, myself included, who did analysis like that, independently of each other. And we were within 1% of the result across all the main parties. So there are other ways of doing it that are much more accurate and I dare say much cheaper. Polling is a multi-million rand industry. And of course, pollsters will defend polls because it's the money.
Hard to get rid of. But what's
conflict
the
of
impact
interest.
If you not get, so we're not getting your data, for example, but say I get yours, and what sort of impact is that likely to have on my vote?
No, nothing.
But if you see possibly that a party's doing
there's
as well as you think it should be doing, it could motivate you to get out there or not?
It can or it can't. It's just like this story about people being marked on their fingers and others rubbing the mark off. If 200,000 people, if it happened to 200,000 people, it can make a difference. If it happened to 2 to 20, it can't make a difference. So this whole thing about polls, and there were studies done in the States and in Europe about the influence on polls on voter perceptions. Polls are generally seen as an independent, unbiased way of informing voters
how
other people like them think and feel. I do not believe all pollsters are independent. That is not the case.
Yeah.
I know that Ipsos is independent. I do not know about others. But the point is, it's one of the types of information you get. You get information from political parties, you get information from their manifestos if you want to read them. It's very heavy reading. You get information from the media, from everywhere, and a poll is just another point of information.
Okay, let me ask very quickly because we're running out of time. So, I mean, look at Donald Trump. I mean, they got it incredibly wrong there. I mean, what do you think the future now is for polls, and what should we demand as the voter?
Well, I don't know why we do polls. The only poll that counts is the election.
That's true.
And that's what it comes down to. So why are we spending millions and millions on these polls which don't tell us anything? At best, it's political entertainment in the build-up to election. It's a conversation point to fill up time in studios before the actual poll. But they serve no purpose whatsoever.
Okay. Eva, Marie, thank you very much. Marie, some health facts and exploding your excuse not to rock up at work on Monday. A new study shows early Monday mornings are no longer prime time for heart attacks. Experts thought it was due to the sudden surge of the stress hormone when waking up, but that might now be changing due to our 24/7 lifestyles. The bad news is heart attacks are now more likely to occur at any time and any day of the week. And you may have to rethink teaching your children that you smell with your nose and taste with your tongue. And new studies found you can also smell a little bit with your tongue. The same sensors that detect odors in the nose are apparently also present in human taste cells found on the tongue. And that's our show for tonight. Checkpoint is next.